And hello, friends. Welcome to our latest edition. What day is this? I don't even know anymore.
I think Google tells me it's Thursday.
Welcome to the
It's going to be Thursday in this world.
That's right. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Happy Half Hour Training Camp Daily Special. Yep. We have hit that point in a hurry. There's always a moment in training camp where I lose sight of what day of the week, what time of the day it is, and we're there, and it's day two. But there's been a lot going on. And we are going to tell you all about it. We're going to bring you all the pictures and video at Panthers.com, the Panthers YouTube channel. Check it all out. But there's actual football practice happening again. And for the second day in a row, you know, that first day is always such a, first day of school. Woo!
Yeah, so exciting.
And the second day is always like, yep, that's football practice, all right. But one of the things that's immediately apparent to me, and I touched on this in the observations after practice earlier this afternoon, the job Jaycee Horn does getting a good group of receivers ready is going to make this football team better. I mean, Jaycee Horn, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. I think we established that last year when he played 15 games and went to a Pro Bowl. But seeing him match up on a day-to-day basis, whether it's, you know, outside against Teteroa McMillan, up in Xavier Leggett's face, I mean, two big physical guys going at it, he is the test all of those guys need.
Exactly, and he takes great pride in that. He knows that is his job, and he makes it as difficult for them as he can on the field, mentally, logistically. He's going to make sure that by the time they get to Sunday, they're like, thank God I can play a different corner than Jaycee Horn.
Right, because there are not very many weeks on this schedule where you're going to see somebody as good as or better than Jaycee Horn that you get a chance to see every day. Today was one of those plays. It was kind of a deep ball, and it wasn't one of those things that was dramatic to look at, but it's not like a big diving pass breakup or anything like that. But Jaycee was on T-Mac to the point that wasn't nobody catching that ball. I mean, and he just basically boxed him out and kind of kept him from getting to a spot where he could make a play. And it's just an education. And Canales went on and on after practice talking about that play and what T-Mac learns from it. And if he continues to learn those lessons from it, and every indication is he's willing to, he's got a good opportunity because that is, as we said, as good a test as you're going to see in the NFL.
And, you know, there are times that T-Mac gets his on Jaycee, too, and I'm sure that's got to feel pretty good to get that one under your belt.
No doubt.
He had one again today. It was kind of a drag right there across the middle. Jaycee's chasing him. It was good defense. He was making sure he didn't get a flag. He was also ensuring that T-Mac had little to no room to work.
No doubt.
He was pushed right up against the sideline. Ball was a little high just to give T-Mac a place to go get it, and he did. You know, he's got such great, he's such a good hands catcher. Yeah. He's got such soft hands, and he's, you know, don't forget a 6'8", I don't remember how tall he is, but he's tall. He can go up there and get it. He made what is actually a difficult catch look pretty routine.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you saw on the social medias yesterday the very casual one-handed catch. During individual drills where he almost runs into a training intern carrying a crate full of water bottles and it's like, oh, by the way, and it just sticks there. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about the other day with Canales. When they drafted him, Dave's like, I love him because he catches it here and he catches it here and he catches it here and he catches it here. Yeah. You know, he has this very nonchalant way of doing things other people have to be very chalant to try to do.
Very chalant. Is chalant actually a word, or is it
I think it is. And that's how you pronounce it, too.
That one.
No shots fired.
I'm never going to live that down.
This early in the podcast. That's all right, homeschool. You're doing great. At any rate.
Great battle between the two of them every day. And I feel like people are probably maybe not tired of hearing us say it, but they're like, really? That's all y'all are seeing? It's a really good battle.
Yeah, and the other thing that's become apparent in 2 days of practice, and again, second day in shorts and jerseys, basically. They won't put on pads until next week, so it doesn't start looking like actual football. So what we're watching now is glamorized 7-on-7. Mm-hmm. And when you're in that situation, you can tell a lot more about receivers and cornerbacks than you can offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I kind of laughed today. Somebody asked Canales about the run defense, and it's like,
I don't know yet.
You're out there in shorts, and by the way, Derek Brown's out again today.
Brown.
He's got some personal stuff. Bobby's on the side. He's still on the NFI list. Having the two Browns and getting in pads is probably going to tell you more about the run defense than what we're finding out right now.
Right.
But that receiver group is really good. If you go back to yesterday's highlights, Hunter Renfrow just keeps catching footballs.
He doesn't give up on a play at all.
He's got this ability to make plays at different angles. Mm-hmm. He's willing to throw himself into spaces. Hunter Renfrow is going to make it very difficult to cut this roster down because 6 is kind of the general number of receivers a team will usually carry. 7 if you're really, really deep, and a couple of them are really, really good at special teams. And when you go through Adam Thielen, XL, T-Mac, okay, there's your starting 3. Then you throw in a Jalen Coker, who really impressed last year and came on and showed a lot of promise for an undrafted rookie. And
David Moore.
And then you add a David Moore, who all he does is make plays for Dave Canales offenses late in the year, whether it's here in Atlanta, whether it's when he was with the Bucs, whether it was with the Seahawks. David Moore is a known commodity.
Right.
And then you go through guys like Dan Chisena. They've got some undrafted rookies that they really like. That's a really deep room. And they've got a bunch of dudes who could conceivably make this team or somebody else's, and that's not necessarily anything we've said about receiver groups here in the last couple of years. Nothing against any of those other guys, but the difference in talent and production based on what we're seeing in practice is night and day.
I'm just kind of looking through some of the notes I jotted down today, and I think other than Adam Thielen, who obviously you know what you're getting with him, great production every time, I think I wrote down the name of pretty much every other one of those receivers you just said. Yeah. McMillan, Coker, Renfrow, Moore, they all had a moment at some point today in practice. David Moore, it was during red zone period. I mean, just caught something in a tight window, guy all over his back, and then turned and just out-muscled the guy to get in for a touchdown. Coker with a nice snag kind of just out of the air too, reminding people what he can do when he's smooth. And then our guy Bryson Tremaine had a couple of different catches today where you just kind of raised your eyebrows and you're like, wait, who was that? And you're looking at the roster, and it was Tremaine.
Bryson Tremaine's not a household name by any stretch of the imagination. He spent some time with the Washington Commanders, old Stanford guy. Big target. He was injured for a little bit of OTAs and wasn't really out there on the field during the spring, but he's such a big target, and he's got some ability in special teams too, and that's why Canales keeps saying when it's time to cut this roster down, special teams is going to be a big part of it because you're going to need gunners. You're going to need people to cover kicks. You're going to need a lot of different guys. So people who aren't necessarily what you think of as like a fantasy football type wide receiver candidate are very important to this team because you got to figure out who's going to be active on Sunday because they're going to cut the roster to 53, but they're going to carry 46, 47 into games. And that's where you got to start filling out those kicking teams.
And then to your point as well, also still some other UDFAs that Canales has talked about before that he really likes. Yeah. And then I'm just double checking a number here. Yeah, it was Jacoby George. Jacoby George had a really good catch in traffic today, just kind of knowing where the coverage was and how to use his body to kind of create his own little window. Nice little catch. I mean, again, it wasn't for a long pass, but it was in red zone, so that's all. He did exactly what he had to do. Yeah. And so things like that stand out.
And, oh, by the way, there's still this Adam Thielen guy running around. Adorable story about Adam Thielen. And if you've ever seen pictures of Adam running around with his kids, I mean, adorable, I think, is a fair word for Adam.
They are very adorable.
They are an adorable family. And Adam has figured out the secret to playing in the NFL for a long time, obviously.
Coffee.
I mean, and that comes from being good at football. But he's learned the more you can do. Mm-hmm. So today, Sam Martin, the punter, is out. He's got a little hamstring. He'll be back soon enough, which means during kicking portions of practice, Andy Dalton is serving as the holder for these kickers. And Andy wants to do a good job, and he tries really hard at it and is pretty good at it. He's done it before in NFL games. He held for Mike Nugent in Cincinnati a time or two. When Andy was out there practicing, Thielen goes to Canales and says, hey, if you need me to do this, I probably can. Ask the kickers. And he's over there talking to the kickers saying,
did it in high school,
do you
right?
mind if I do this with gloves on?
Right.
Because Adam's not going to go to the length of taking his receiving gloves off. Those things are very particular. But he's like, hey, man, I'm happy to do this if it'll work. But everybody's sort of like, no, Adam, you stay over there. You catch passes. Andy's got this. We believe in Andy. And also Sam Martin's going to be back soon.
Right, pretty soon. And, I spent so long in the college space, and in the college space, it's pretty much always a quarterback that is the holder.
Right.
Because you can run trick plays off of that.
Yep.
And so I get excited. It feels comfortable for me to see a backup quarterback be the holder.
No doubt.
And you never know what could be possible when you do that.
And I want to tell you, Andy, maybe one of the snaps yesterday one of the holds wasn't great for poor Matthew Wright. But Andy takes this very seriously. Yeah. Andy is like weirdly competitive about his ability, about the ability to do about the 37th thing on his job description that he might be asked to do in any particular day. But J.J. Jansen has told this story before. It's like last year in practice, Johnny Hecker was out one day, had a little back thing. He was going to be fine for that week's game. But to get through practice, they needed somebody to hold, and Danny's like, well, I'll go hold. And wasn't great at it that day. And, beat himself up about it and was going to Tracy Smith, asking for film, and can I work on this some more, and asking JJ if he'll stay after practice to snap more balls to him so he can practice it. So he cares about this stuff very deeply.
You know what the number one rule of holding is?
What's that?
Oh, come on, Darin.
Oh, you're going to go Ace Ventura, aren't you?
Of course.
Laces out.
Dan? That's the important part of it.
That's right. Well,
Laces out, Dan. No, and to your point about going to ask for tape on holding, but sometimes you just remember football players are a different breed.
Yeah.
Athletes are a different breed. To care enough about that to go get tape to figure out how to be better at it. But you know what? That's what got him here.
There was a question about Andy in the mailbag last week, and somebody referenced a podcast that called him the prime meridian of quarterbacks. Basically, which is a nice way of calling somebody mid, I think, is as the kids say. But I have to remind people all the time, Andy Dalton is 26th all time in NFL history. All of the people who have played the footballs, only 25 of them have thrown more touchdowns or thrown for more passing yards than Andy Dalton.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's why he's in the nesting doll back there, in a very prominent place in the nesting doll, by the way, Andy. In case you're watching this podcast, you're in there.
You are the center of it all.
You're the center of it all.
And, Dave Canales was asked a question today that was really interesting, and he gave a great answer on how having Andy in with the twos allows him to better evaluate everyone, because he's like, the ball is going where it needs to go, where it's supposed to go. So now you can better evaluate the receivers, the safeties, and corners on the other side. And he's like, that's not always the case with a backup quarterback. And he gave credit to Jack Plummer as well for being able to trust him in that situation. Yep. But he said, that's not always the case with the backup quarterback. You have to kind of take into account, when you're evaluating those backup receivers, you have to take into account who's throwing them the ball. And he's like, you don't have to worry about that with Andy. And he's like, that's a pretty good situation to be in for a team.
Yeah. You know who else showed good hands today?
I'm sure I'm supposed to know this, but let me think.
Pat Jones did.
Oh, yeah.
Pat Jones, not only quite a fisherman, but he reeled in a big one today on the practice field. There was a segment where he fades back into coverage, gets his hands on, makes a difficult catch, and I love the way the defense rallies around guys. Somebody makes a play in practice, and it's a party all of a sudden. And they surrounded Pat because, it's one thing for a Damani Richardson to get a pick. He does stuff like that. He's a DB. He's little, and he's back there. Right. Pat Jones is a big man who lifts ungodly amounts of weight.
Yeah, he's like 6-something.
And, got up in the air and made a catch with his hands. It was like, okay, this guy, I'm sitting here thinking, trick play for Pat Jones. What do you think? But Pat Jones got an important role to play on this team. I mean, we've talked a lot about Nick Squirtin, Prince Emmanuel, who was exonerated today, by the way. More on that in a moment. But they not only, DJ Wanham and Pat Jones, have to mentor these two rookies, but they're also players in their own right. I mean, Pat made a bunch of plays for the Vikings last year. DJ came on strong second half once he got back on the field in Germany and had 4 sacks in the last 8 games.
Right.
I mean, he's capable of making plays, so they need those guys to be influential and be mentors to the draft picks that they brought in. But if you start Pat and DJ Wanham, you're in pretty steady hands because both those guys have been good, solid outside linebackers.
2 notes on that real quick. I don't know if did you see the video from the other night where Princely and Nick were calling their veterans?
Where did that video live?
I think it started on TikTok.
Then I did not see it.
It has made its way to other social media platforms. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Where it's this TikTok trend, but like I said, they posted it at other places, where you call somebody to tell them good night. Like it would be like me calling you and being like, I just wanted to tell you good night before you go to bed.
Yeah, if you do that during training camp, do it before dark.
Before
please.
dark. And so it was Princely and Nick calling DJ and Pat, and I think they called a couple of other guys just to be like, just good night, we'll see you tomorrow. And also on that note, Turk Wharton had some criticism, constructive criticism for Pat Jones after that interception.
Yeah.
He's like, he's got to hold on to that ball tight because the offense punched it out.
It did get smacked out.
Yeah, and he's like, he's got to hold on to that ball tight. And Turk made sure to let everyone know that he had 2 touchdowns in college that he returned, and he had an interception off of Taylor Heineke when they played the Commanders his second year with the Chiefs. So he's like, I know what I'm talking about.
That would be Panthers legend Taylor Heineke,
yes.
ladies and gentlemen.
But then I saw Pat downstairs later and asked him about it, and he was chuckling. He's like, yeah, I got to hold on to it better, but that was a fun one. So
yeah. There's a lot of energy, and things are going to ramp up. I mean, these early days of training camp are always a little tricky, and I always giggle when people, and social media is to blame for a lot of this, but people will take a little kernel of information and try to extrapolate it into a great big thing. This is very early.
Yeah.
All right. These guys are still running around in shorts. Again, pads go on next Monday. It starts looking like actual football again before the Browns preseason game and the joint practice with the Browns. But they are moving at a pretty high pace right now. Now, it ain't got truly hot. That's coming.
yeah.
I have to check
And
in.
that trip to Houston.
I have to check in with my main man, Brad Panovich, to see if it's ever been over 100 degrees this many days in a row. Is what they're forecasting for next week.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, but
Fun.
we're used to hot. We're used to humid here in the center of the universe, Charlotte, North Carolina. But anytime it's got 3 numbers, that's too many.
That's 2 numbers too many.
That's too many when it comes time to practice football or even be outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, my job involves standing around watching people practice football and then talking to them and writing stories about it. The people who actually work out in this mess, I've got nothing but respect
I don't understand
for.
how they do it.
I don't know. I went to
More
college.
power to you.
I went to college so I could avoid it. And also, I'm a
Right.
very lazy person. I don't like doing hard work. But,
Right.
It's,
I get that.
It's going to be warm out here tail end of the week and next week.
Dave Canales said that's what he wanted. You got to play week 1 in Jacksonville. You got to be ready to play in the heat and humidity. Well, buddy, they're going to get it.
Well, congratulations.
You know what else is next week, Darin?
What else is next week?
This has nothing to do with Panthers training camp. I just thought about this.
This is a Love Island reference. I'm out.
Oh, it's not, but that's
Okay.
the reunion's coming next month. Next week, we get our first NFL game back on TV.
That's right.
Hall of Fame game.
Hall of Fame
The
game.
calendar falls.
Chargers and the Lions.
The calendar falls really weird this year, where everything seems to be up a week than it normally is. Like, for example, NFL always starts, the weekend after Labor Day? Well, the weekend after Labor Day this year is September 7th. I think our first game is September 8th. That's normally Labor Day. So if everything feels sooner this year, it is.
Well, 365 isn't divisible by 7, so days of the
Right.
week are often, there's a 6
I know it
day.
does this every
Yeah.
few years, but
Does this every few
this happens to be the year where it's weird.
Yeah, it does seem early. I mean, when people are going to Canton for the Hall of Fame game
In July.
that's tough. That's tough to process. But also a big weekend next weekend at Hall of Fame for Panthers legend Jared Allen.
Jared Allen.
Here's
that's
a little
right.
tease. We got some cool stuff coming up next week. We went to Canton to talk to Jared earlier this spring. We've talked to a ton of former teammates, coaches, executives involved with the decision to bring him here for his last season. And I can't wait to unveil some of this. There's some really cool stories about him and his time here and what he brought to a team. He wasn't here for a long time, but he was here for a good time.
I heard a cool Jared Allen story the other day. One of the guys downstairs was, I believe it was JJ, because he would have been here.
He was here.
And he was talking about Jared Allen and said, what was cool about Jared, and he said what was cool about that entire 2015 team, but he was using Jared as an example, was that you had some veteran guys come in like him who didn't try to change how they were doing things, but just adapted himself to what the Panthers were doing.
Right.
And he was like, that makes all the difference.
One of the things Jared told us when we were up in Canton visiting with him earlier this spring, he was like, I was just coming to be part of Luke Kuechly's defense. And
that is his official government name.
That's right. So it's really neat. So we'll bring all that to you next week. But we'll be out there tomorrow. We're going to talk to some dudes. We'll bring you another happy half hour tomorrow. Sure. It's Friday. It's daily. We're going to take Saturday off.
Friday.
Podcast Matt's been working really hard this week and with unusual schedules, thanks to me calling at unusual times and saying, hey, Matt, can't get there now. Yeah, I picked up the banana phone. That's a Marty Brenneman homage for the young kids out there in the audience. We're going to bring it to you tomorrow. We'll take Saturday off. And then we'll get back after it next week once pads are on, and we really got all kinds of cool stuff to talk about. So until tomorrow, we will
see you then.
We will crank out more stuff on Panthers.com. There'll be stuff on the YouTube channel all day and night. Tune in for all that, and we will see you tomorrow here on the Happy Half Hour.
Bye.